So now moving into our next session, which is a technical session on climate resilient water, sanitation and hygiene for enabling and sustaining livelihoods. Water and climate change are deeply interconnected, forming a critical triad with livelihood. The climate crisis is primarily a water crisis, evidently reflected in floods, rising sea level, wildfires, and droughts. The panel will primarily explore strategies, initiatives defining the future of livelihood in a climate conscious world. I warmly welcome our moderator for the session, Ms. Rasika Chopra, who is a manager at Microsafe Consulting, to take her place at the stage. Now, I would like to invite on stage the panelists for the sessions. I welcome on stage Ms. Bonani Roy Chaudhary, who is a managing director, Napsamnidhi Finance Limited. I warmly welcome Mr. Manoj Gulati, who is a regional director, South Asia Water.org. Next, I welcome Mr. Sadaf Saeed, who is the CEO, Mathut Microfin Limited. Now, I also welcome Mr. Dibijoti Patnaik, who is a director, Annapurna Finance Private Limited. Now, I hand over the session to Rasika to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the panel discussion. This is a topic that we all feel very passionately about, which is improving access to wash for population that is at the base of the pyramid and building their resilience to climate change. All of us here are aware of the relationship and interdependence of climate, wash, and livelihoods, but our panelists are going to talk more about it. And for people who are vulnerable, especially women, they are more vulnerable to the impact of climate change and to the lack of access to wash services. So, as you know, women are primarily responsible for work like fetching of water, making it drinkable for the family, and this significantly reduces their income generation time and their productivity. So, in fact, I remember in one of our interviews with Napsamriddhi, Burani ma'am mentioned one of their field visits with Satya Micro Capital, which is providing piped water supply to households. They witnessed that women could see an increase of almost 3,000 rupees per month in their monthly income when they had access to piped water connection because they had time which freed up for weaving charpais for them. What is more important is that there are a lot of studies which even water.org is conducting, which is trying to assess the impact of access to wash services in terms of economic, social, and health impact. And from some of these studies, it is very evident that there is a significant savings in income for a family when they have access to toilets. Especially women are more prone to unsanitary conditions, and even in mega cities like Delhi, women are prone to sexual attacks because they are resorting to open defecation in odd hours. And what is adding more salt to the injury is the fact that when they have existing wash infrastructure and that gets damaged under extreme climate events, so even groundwater which is being replenished slowly, that gets affected. When sanitation structures are destroyed, there is reverse release of fecal matter and sewage, which is further impacting women who are prone to infections. There was a study which KPMG did, which was commissioned by Water.org and Sadhan, which said that 50% microfinance borrowers had lost their wash infrastructure to climate damage. And these are borrowers who had actually lost infrastructure. So if we look at borrowers who have seen the impact of climate change, that's even more, which is close to 80%. And there is a significant decrease in income when there are extreme heat impact, which reduces their repayment capacity as well, which is a cause of concern for MFI stakeholders. But the situation is not that grim because some of the MFIs that are present here today, they are already trying to tackle these challenges by introducing climate resilient wash products, and there is a lot of demand for these products as well. the same KPMG study, they said that customers are demanding products like water storage, rooftop rainwater harvesting solutions, sustainable toilets which are using water sustainably, reuse of grey water for irrigation. So there is a lot of demand which is untapped and which a lot of the MFIs are now trying to cater to. So, with this introduction, I want to thank all our panelists on behalf of Access and Navsamriddhi for taking the time out to join us. I'll just quickly introduce everybody. On my left is Mr. Dipjyoti Patnaik. He's the director for Annapurna Financial Services, and he brings over 18 years of experience in microfinance, micro enterprise development, and development sector consulting with experience in both public and development sectors. And Annapurna has been instrumental in constructing more than 1 lakh toilets across India, and they are now providing wash and climate products for low income population. We also have Ms. Bunani Roy Chaudhary, who, in her capacity as the Managing Director of Napsamriddhi Finance, has been a champion for the wash financing cause of the organization. Through their client partners, which includes banks and NBFC, Napsamriddhi has successfully disbursed more than 300 crores in wash loans to more than 65,000 borrowers, with the focus on gender, with the majority of the clients being women. Very recently, they have also pioneered the Climate Ready Wash Funding Program, under which 5 loans have been sanctioned to NBFCs and MFIs. We have Mr. Manoj Gulati with us, who is the Regional Director for Water.org. And Water.org has been instrumental in bringing water and sanitation solutions to individuals in low income communities through water loans for over 3 decades, and has touched 60 million lives in more than 11 countries by disbursing 13 million loans for close to $5 billion. We have Mr. Sadaf Saeed with us, who has been the founding CEO for Muthoot Microfinance since the inception in 2010. In line with the government's Swachh Bharat mission and to improve the lives of women, especially in rural India, Muthoot Microfinance has been active in promoting sanitation and motivating rural families to use proper sanitation facilities by providing loans for water and sanitation for rural households. So I'll start with the questions now without much delay. My first question is to Mr. Gulati, and we touched upon it very briefly during our introduction. But from you, I wanted to understand, since Water.org has been a champion in the sector for close to 3 decades now. In your experience, can you explain a little bit more about the role of wash and climate with livelihoods?
Thank you, Rasika, for giving a great introduction to the wash sector. And thank you, Access team, as always, for your support in bringing this topic. And thank you, Bonani, again. Wash sector is, 3 decades old, and it's basically came up with as a concept that there is the amount of funds, no amount of funds could actually solve at that stage in 2004 the idea of having safe water and access to sanitation available through the help of charity or government funds. So how do you solve the problem? And to solve the problem, access to capital markets was the most logical way, and it was the most affordable way for people to take it versus continuing to live lives in place and in the same way. Access to funds allows you to change your lives, in which we have seen across the entire financial inclusion space. That's a common theme. Water and sanitation applies with it. We've been able to bring this product forward as a product, as a concept, and pioneers such as Sadaf and DJ have actually been able to imbibe the message which it goes of how important it is to take it to the client and give them this offer. Not that people have to take a water and sanitation loan, but they have access to funds for this. That's the key driver that is there. When women get access to it, and as Rasika said, there's a sea of change that comes through with it. So the journey started from there. Early adopters and champions have done it, and as a matter of fact, both of them have done over 100,000 loans. And I'm sure they can talk about better in terms of the quality of loans, which has been actually seen to be at times better than even your normal traditional income generating loans. The journey also had at early stages to come through where the funds will come through, and we were lucky to get partners who helped us get it into through RBI approval into the priority sector lending. And then in 2019, NABARD stepped in and they gave a huge thrust to the sector through the idea of coming in with a refinancing scheme for 800 crores. And then again, Bonani came in, and with your support, ma'am, we were able to again move the sector from into MFIs that were smaller in nature, and make sure that they are also getting access to funds. I think that's the three of them really need. They are the true champions of this sector. Now, the question that comes is, why is it so important to invest into it? How is it linked to climate, and what are the challenges that if we don't look into it, how does it impact our client base? When we look at a client, the funds that are available, the total funds that are available is only 3% of the funds for SDG come to SDG 6. And if that is the amount of money that is coming in through traditional mechanisms, how are we going to be solving the issue? When a woman has this challenge of not having access for a water and sanitation, and a drought comes in, it's most likely she's going to migrate from that location. That family is going to move somewhere else. If a flood comes, we talked about it, the waterborne diseases is going to increase. When the government came back with the Swachh Bharat scheme, and they said we will build 11 crore toilets, that's what they built. They're not going to come back and they said we'll go with the SBM2 program and we're going to help it. But today the government is saying we have got other priorities coming in, other SDG priorities. Effectively, the game has shifted from government schemes to sector-led schemes, where the capital markets are actually going to see it as an opportunity. I think the biggest opportunity that is coming in is not the fear of climate that is there. That is one aspect to it. But also the opportunities that climate is also bringing in. And we have to look at it from both. The amount of funds that is coming in through ESG, the amount of funds that are coming through the green bonds, the amount of funds that are coming in are only going to increase over a period of time. And I think both Annapurna and Muthoot have benefited from this mindset, instead of the traditional mindset of priority sector lending. Let's keep going, and we can have more conversation through this.
Thank you, Manoj. What struck me most from this conversation was that there are only 3% funds from traditional sources which are going towards SDG 6 goals. And given that there is so much attention coming from impact investors, especially, I think where we are falling short is that we are not quantifying the impact that these wash loans are generating. I know Water.org has been trying to do that and encouraging their partners to do that as well. But a lot of these innovative funding sources want to quantifiably be able to see the impact that is being generated. So thank you for that. Bonani ma'am, my next question is for you. How does wash lending impact livelihoods, and how important do you perceive the access to climate-ready wash products to ensure sustainability in the long run?
Okay, thank you, Rasika. Thank you, Access, for this opportunity, for this forum. So, as a debt capital provider championing the cause of wash lending, at Napsamruddhi, we realized that funding for wash is a key variable ultimately in sustaining livelihoods both over the short and the long term. Because, like Manoj has already flagged, the impact of having unsafe wash and the impact of climate on wash, all of them, if we look at it as a value chain, as a linkage, then the moment we fund for these causes, what happens is that there is an improvement in health both over the short and the long term, which leads to improvement in productivity. And of course, there are huge savings in health costs as well, medical expenses, which are very substantial at that level. And then what it all boils down to the net disposable income of the marginalized, and which is, of course, the biggest pointer to promoting and sustaining livelihoods. And we have seen that in the past, a lot of studies have happened. There was a study in 2006 which showed that there is a loss equivalent to 6.4% of India's GDP because of unsafe wash. And such studies are happening worldwide today also. There is a huge leakage. In fact, the study by KPMG, which was commissioned by Water.org and Southern, have also brought out such glaring findings how not having access to safe wash is impacting the income at individual as well as community level. So, and one more thing is that at least in our country, MFIs are taking this forward, and we are working through 20 MFIs in WASH. And here the support is going mainly to the women borrowers at household level, but there is also a need to bring these solutions at community level and upscale them. And for this, the WASH MSMEs need to be supported. And that is one very challenging area. We are trying to work towards that with the support of Water.org and other agencies, so that WASH MSMEs also get a lot of funding. And like Manoj has said, how much of the finance is going for WASH, that is a concern. So when we look at the nexus between climate and WASH, we realize that climate funding as it is very inadequate. And out of that, how much is going for WASH? There is a data also that in 2020, 575 billion US dollars was committed to climate action, out of which $403 million went for water and nothing, nil to sanitation. So this is the concern that we have today. Is the funding enough? And thankfully, the dialogue around water is changing. In fact, COP27 was a turning point in this direction, where there was a call to action to ensure sustainable or climate resilient sanitation for 3.6 billion people by 2030. And also the AWARE initiative was brought out, which brought water absolutely front and center of climate action and the climate dialogues. But again, the concern is about how much funds are going into it. And while the state is doing its bit, in India, all the ministries are absolutely focused. There is a lot of impetus on safe water and sanitation, but that won't be enough. It's for private players to come in. That is the race to zero, where the non-state actors and where we come in, where the financial sector comes in, which is very important. And I think that's very important. And the other thing is that while we are flagging the impact of climate on WASH, we say, yes, the climate crisis is a water crisis. We see the floods and the droughts and the sea level rise leading to salinity. We are talking about glaciers melting. But the other way, there is a reverse relationship also, because if we look at the pit latrines, if we look at unsafe sanitation, and that's around 50% of the world's population today use unsafe sanitation. So we are here looking at 4.2 billion people who use unsafe sanitation systems. So we know that at COP28, there was a pledge, a global methane pledge, and the pledge was to reduce methane emissions by 30% from 2020 levels by 2030. So, if we look at the amount of emission from landfills, from unsafe wash, from pit latrines, it's huge. And in fact, it's said that if scaled to global sum populations, composting alone can reduce methane by 44%. And methane and nitrous oxide, which are emitted from landfills, are far more potent than CO2, especially over the shorter term. So, having realized that, we know that there is a huge opportunity as well today for the financial sector. First of all, for financial sector to sustain, the real sector has to sustain. And so there is a cause for ensuring climate resilient wash for the underlying borrowers, where it's come to the MFI especially, and for HFCs, and of course the women are central to this. Secondly, there is an opportunity where, it can be a 1 trillion rupee, 1 trillion opportunity for the financial sector going forward. And this is what we need to actually encash on. I would say, as financial sector, we have to be commercially viable, commercially sustainable. So at Napsamruddhi, we realized that, and we piloted the climate ready wash finance, like Rasika has already talked about. We made it very inclusive, involving participatory rural appraisal. We have had lot of exposure visits and collaborative meets, and sanctioned 5 loans altogether today. But going forward, there is a lot of work to do there. We are financing wash MSMEs in that too. Very innovative products which focus on circular economy, which focus on reuse, recycle, then climate mitigation and adaptation in wash, which we feel can really move the needle. But of course, there are miles and miles to go there, a lot of challenges, but I'm sure since we are all working together, we can overcome this as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I do want to ask you more about WASH MSMEs, so please hold that thought. We'll come back to you. So we have 2 representatives from the MFI sector today, and MFIs are synonymous with livelihood. So I really want to ask you both about the aspects of lending and fundraising, which are both very important to an MFI's operationality. So, Mr. Said, my first question is to you. I wanted to understand from your learnings from the field, what is the impact of financing water and sanitation for poor households, and how can you translate this into sustainable livelihoods in the long run, especially looking at it from a gender lens?
Thanks a lot, Rasika. First of all, thank you for putting me on this panel. Wash and sanitation have been a key focus area for Muthoot since inception, because we have not only focused only on providing loans, but really working on the livelihood and improving the living standards of our clients. We started way back in 2012, these sanitation loans. We started in a district in Karnataka in Bailongal. At that time, of course, the Pradhan Mantri kind of Yojana really helped, Swachh Bharat Yojana really helped, but at that time there were some local schemes. So Karnataka government was providing subsidy to put up sanitation facility in the household. We started with a kind of a model where we were going with a prefabricated structure and helping people to put up those sanitation facilities and then help them claim the subsidy. Those were the starting days, but of course in 2014 the government announced this Swachh Bharat, and the government also came back with the upfront subsidy for providing these sanitation facilities. So we had to innovate, and instead of really looking at putting up prefabricated thing, we started providing loans to them to put up, people who showed interest in this. The idea there was, and we did a study, we did a deep kind of a study and understood what is the impact of these activities. So water plus sanitation both have a deep impact on the household health. We did a study with the help of an agency, which we identified that with safe water, we are able to reduce at least 30% cases of diarrhea in a household. So, in rural household, if the income generating person has some sort of a health issue, then of course their livelihood gets impacted. Also, if there is some family member who's suffering from diarrhea, kids generally in this, then the whole cash flow of the households get impacted. So our idea was to ensure access to safe drinking water so that these cases are reduced. We did a further deep down studies. We understood that livelihood, the nutrition of the babies and everything gets impacted because of open defecation, and it's a serious ill, which we found out that there are houses, and it's anecdotal, but these are real cases, that people are reluctant to marry in those villages where there are no sanitation facilities. And facilities where there are no sanitation, there is open defecation, usually that the feces get mixed with the drinking water, whatever the facility, and it gives rise to many more diseases. So we thought this is a very, very important facility, and we went out with this opportunity to provide loans to people who are interested. Of course, at that point of time, there was no recognition as PSL, and there were no dedicated credit lines which were available for sanitation loans. But we were committed to this. Till date, we have provided this loan to 1 lakh rural household. Around 250 crores of loans have been disbursed in this category. Of course, it has become now under the COP27, and even before, I think SDGs, it has become a lot more focused, and there are PSL attached to it. But still, I think in terms of understanding this, there is still some lack of commitment of funding that is available. Of course, there is a greater understanding on ESG globally, but getting those funds is a lot more challenging also. But domestically, if you see, banks do not focus on this particular kind of field. Of course, dedicated agencies like NABARD, NAP Samriddhi, and all of them, they do provide credit, and that helps. There are a couple of foreign agencies also, they also provide credit, but again, when we, as an enterprise, when we borrow funds for these kind of facilities, these are loans that we disburse over a period of time. The money we draw, we can't immediately block that for use of these loans only. So that money has to be fungible, and then we have the commitment to use that money over a period of time. So that is one challenge that we are still grappling with, because whatever credit line that we are available, they come dedicatedly for this work. So for an enterprise like me, if I draw 50 crores of loan for this and I sit on it for a while, then it's a challenge. People like certain banks which give certain foreign agency which give flexibility that allows us to kind of do more impactful stuff. And there are, the scope is very large. I think the improvement of living standards of our clients is not only from the sanitation facility, but access to water, helping them build a toilet, helping them build a washroom, improve that washroom, helping them put a overhead tank to store that, and then get the tap to the last mile. I think all of these are items which are helping us improve the livelihood. We have seen during the COVID crisis, one of the things that we have seen, the household where we had provided sanitation facilities, the repayment rates in those households were better. And this is essentially because of our commitment and more in terms of in tune engagement with the household.
Thank you so much, Mr. Said. Mr. Patnaik, I wanted to ask you, since Annapurna has successfully dabbled with innovative financing, for example, sustainability-linked bonds, what has been your experience with fundraising and financing for the WASH portfolio specifically? And are there any successful models both from India and internationally which you can talk about more, especially for the WASH aspect?
Thank you, Rasika, and thank you, Access and Vanani ma'am, for inviting me to speak and share my thoughts with all of you. I think my panels have already spoke about some of these areas. That there is a small portion of the larger scheme is only available to water and sanitation program. However, even that small portion is not getting utilized by the sector. There are very few MFIs who are into this. Two large are sitting here with you, kind of, and one or two more outside this room. Beyond that, the scale is really not that big. And I must thank and appreciate water.org and Water Equity, which Manoj leads here in India, who actually brought this whole concept of financing water and sanitation as a product and convincing few of us to get into this and start doing it. And the initial funding and everything comes from them, whether the change management program, whether the whole bringing in that consciousness among the clients to get the access to the safe water, and why should they spend money around those areas. From the and we have been engaged for last 10 years doing more than 1 lakh toilets, 1.2 lakh toilets. We've spent disbursed around 350 crore rupees in this sector. So it's a mix of funding. Funding is available, but the problem is that you have to now, like for example, there are green bonds available. There are social impact bonds available. You can tap the bond market. You can tap the debt market, the normal debt tier markets where like NAB Samruddhi or banks, NABARD or banks, like they are also putting their money. You can tap ECB market. The challenge right now in the bond market and ECB market is the withholding taxes, which was earlier 5%. Now it become 20%. So the cost effectively will go up a little bit for the borrowing. However, and the apart from the challenge that Sadaf mentioned in one of his comment that we get a little gestation period to utilize that money, because these bonds are normally sourced by international agencies. They come at a size, so you also have to have that kind of a program which can actually take that kind of, like for example at Annapurna, when we started doing accessing this bond market to raise more green bond or more social impact bonds. We've always wanted to do in the range of 5 million to 10 million. But then subsequently, because it makes sense for us, but it doesn't make sense for the funder. So we had to actually take it to 25 million, 30 million USD. So if you're taking 30 million USD and then you have to utilize that, you don't have a program that's big. Even with the large program that we are talking about, it is less than 2-3% of our program. So at Annapurna, we are at 10,000 crore disbursed AUM with more than 25 lakh clients, but now we have just done a lakh of toilets, and at a given point, that 1.2 lakh toilets also we have built over a period of 7-8 years. So at a given point, it is 30,000, 40,000, 20,000 clients we are talking about. So the scale that need for us to address, I think we need to really understand that we need a larger institutional, impact making institutions to come together and run a large program to actually get that access. Even that 2-3% money which is available to us, it's a big enough money. And I don't see in India today, with all our putting together all our capacities, it is going to we are utilizing even 2-3% of that money. So from the money, from the investments point of view, I think there is a large scope for to get those money to the people. There is a need. We all know. People have spoke about this room, understand that very well. There is a need for the market to be developed. There are a lot of these government programs which runs. They also built a lot of toilets, a lot of water connections and all, where we need to refurbish them. We need to relook at. Now the problem from the point of view of the climate resilience is that initially when we were funding the toilets, we are not even thinking about climate. We just, the basic was not available, so let's just put a toilet there or a water connection there. From there to a safe water connection, the next step was that. And now we are talking about 24 hours, 365 days access, even during flood, even during. So the costs of those will go up, and for the people to get access to that. So there are a lot of public infrastructure also need to be developed around for us to come and do play a much larger role. If you see any of the sector which has gone and done tremendously well in this country was because our very large public infrastructure was available. Today we are talking about, so for example, our highways or our internet connectivity or our banking penetration is far better, far richer than 5 years, 10 years back, because of the infrastructure available on which we as an entrepreneurs or we as an service providers are building on. So the public infrastructure is not available. We are talking about contamination of water. We are talking about climate resilience. We are talking about best practices. How it is that possible in a village when if you build 20,000 toilets, 5,000, 10,000 toilets, the water will eventually be contaminated and the toilets will be defunct if the cleaning system is not available. Whether it is toilets or water, the use of water, the reuse of water. How are we going to plan? There are many villages where there are single source of water. We have not really built alternative water sources. How do you create an infrastructure which will be climate resilient when you do not have that optionality available to the client? And we as a service provider, we as financing institutions probably will not be in a position to do that. That's not our mandate. It has to be done as an infrastructure program where you have multiple source of water. You have a public infrastructure available for the cleaning, for the recycling, reprocessing of both water and manure. And that is how this program will go up. While money is available, we are willing to fund as much as toilets or water connection or infrastructure possible. That is one large bottleneck from the infrastructure side. And on that infrastructure also, like, the capacity of the people to build those infrastructure is also not there. We do not have enough machines. We do not have we have a very typical mindset of the masons who built the toilets. So it's very, very difficult to convince them to adopt to new technology, which are more efficient, more greener, and more climate resilient. So there also we need to play a much larger role in terms of how do we fund that. So it is, when we are talking about a climate resilient water and sanitation solutions, it can't be seen on isolation, like whether a finance company can do it or whether a development institution can do it. I think it's a joint effort of every institution, including government, has to come together to build that whole ecosystem to run. While if we all agree that this has a significant impact on the livelihood and quality of life of a person, then everybody need to come together to reach there and deliver those product line. And obviously once that infrastructure built in financial institutions will eventually come. They'll come and they'll fund. Like when we were talking about, say, like 10 years back, there were no financer in the tier 3, tier 4 cities for, say, two-wheelers. Today you get them online. You can go buy whatever you want to buy from anywhere, or a television or a refrigerator. Similarly, you want to buy a toilet, you can buy a toilet and we fund you. But then it has to be a client's requirement. I am not here, or we should not, as institutions, push something which they don't need, and that need to be built again. With, I think, a first phase of need was already built by institutions, including water.org and other institutions. I think the second phase of need to be, the money need to be spent there, and then the rest of the funding is available. There are climate bonds available, there are green bonds available, there are ECBs available, and there are financial institutions which are willing to fund. There's a large budget available for people to access those funds. So, from the fund point of view, I think at this moment the funds are much larger available than what we are using.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Patnaik, for that 360 view on the different funding opportunities that are available. Bonani ma'am, I wanted to come back to you on the MSMEs, and I wanted to understand what kind of technical support do WASH MSMEs need in order to promote that climate smart technologies. And this question is open for both you and Mr. Gulati, so I would love to hear from you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Rasika. Of course, yes, we have discussed the microfinance aspect of it, but this is just the demand side, right? But with the demand increasing, the supply side has to scale up, and that's where we find a gap. That is a challenge, because unless that happens, unless the innovations come in, it will be very difficult. The cost of delivery, the ease of delivery, all that, and especially where we talk about climate ready wash, the innovations are all the more important. There is a lot of work going on. Of course, water.org has been supporting. There is the Wash Innovation Hub in ASCII, which is supported by water.org, where we have so many MSMEs, including startups, who are doing a good job and taking it also. It's getting slowly upscaled. Although I would say all this is still at a very nascent stage, and they are getting technical support, and they are the youth. They have a lot of ideas. They are very committed. But the issue with them again is the finance. For them to get funding is very difficult, because we as financial institutions, we have to see their bankability, we have to see their scalability, we have to see their sustainability. And when all that comes in, we will look at net worth. I mean, as financiers, we are very honest. We have to look at net worth, we have to look at profitability, we have to look at the orders. If they have B2G orders, we are absolutely shy, because we know that the money will come from the government entities, but it will take its own good time. And we have a 90-day NPA period. So we don't want that, right, in our books. So for anyone who is financing, that is important. And we have thought around this. We have even talked to factors, because NBFC factors can take up these loans, can take up the receivables. So that where it's become easier. So if we have a tie-up with an NBFC factor, then we give a loan, and before the 90th day, they take over the loan. So this is one innovative way which can work out, which we are discussing now whether it can work. The other thing that they have, the issue is that they have not accessed finance before. So they don't even know how to approach a financier, right? And when they look at a debt capital, they have no idea at what rate it can come, and the rates have to be lower than what it is now. So that's why bankers have to come in, because banks can give at a reduced rate. Today, if we finance someone, our cost of funds are higher. Same with all the other NBFCs. So at that rate, whether those entities will even become viable, that is the main concern. But lot of work is happening, needs to be scaled up, lot of support is required, technical support is coming in. I think financial support is where we have to look at, where equity, soft loan, blended capital, all these innovative support can come in. Of course, Manoj will be the better person to talk about what's exactly going on there. Over to you, Manoj.
Thanks, Bonani ma'am. You're absolutely right, DJ. When we passionately and call him DJ, but with all respect to the issue is that today, and I agree with the comment that this phase one of the growth has happened. Today, it's 55 lakh loans have happened through institutions, 10,000 crores of lending has happened, and it has proven its point that it is a quality product. However, I also correct myself in saying it's a product. If you have to think deeper, water is not just a product; it's a way of life. Everything, your entire life, your entire income generation, your entire MFI sector is one of the risk factor is water. So we need to look at it from that point of view, that by addressing water, we are actually protecting the sector itself. RBI has, the way the priority sector has been defined, I think 80% of or 90% of it, and of it, the money goes into agriculture at the end of it. And banks are able to meet their targets by giving it for agriculture, unless a sub limit is not established for water for few years also. That is one of the techniques by which we can ensure that the bankers want to give money into the system, because today that's where one of the gap is coming in. If you look at another area where RBI is looking into it very closely is for the MSMEs, which today, unless a credit guarantee support is not given to the MFIs, it's a non-viable product for most cases. People shy away from taking it from there, and that's where it is. A study by Dalberg, done around a year and a half back, said that there are 200,000 2 lakh wash MSMEs in the country. And that number is only going to grow, as Bunani ma'am talked about, that as the sector has now evolved, 11 crore toilets, the government backing off, those 11 crore toilets will be needing support. And to support that, you need an ecosystem of MSMEs, small nano enterprises in the village, that if the pipe is burst, what is to be done over there? You can't wait at that point. So these enterprises will come through. In order to achieve this, I think it's also important that credit guarantee schemes come into place. They will support this situation. Yeah, they are there. It's not like they're not available. It's just that they're not when a banker when you go for a loan for it, people shy away from using these schemes that are available in the market by the government. So, we need to bring more awareness in the MSME sector. Only in that 16% of it's a total of 20,000 crore market for wash MSMEs. And only 16% of it is formally credit enabled. So that 16% needs to grow. And that needs various schemes to support it, which can then allow a cheaper financing to happen. Last comment over here is about the shift that is happening in the impact investor community now coming into play. Traditionally, the impact investor community has gone into softer options like EV, like solar, and that's where they feel they get their good ROI. I think that's the shift that we need to promote it, that in the impact investor community, we are bringing more awareness that this is a viable option to go into. And some of the pioneers have done that job. One challenge that remains in this is that most of the MFIs cannot show impact evidence. They haven't designed their work from an ESG or a bond perspective. And so even if investor community is interested, when they come to evaluate, they back off. And that's the thing that we need to now think about. It is more at the wholesale lending when it will happen. What is the need for it, and how do we address that? And that's where Water.org is shifting its focus from having support of the MFIs who know what is the quality of the lending. Let's focus at the wholesale lending issues and address those issues in the next few years so that more funds can come down. Back to you, Rasika.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati and Bunani ma'am. So you're absolutely right about when you talk about the bankability and scalability of these solutions. And it becomes a vicious cycle because many investors want to see that proof of concept, and that proof of concept is not there when somebody is experimenting with an innovative solution, right? So we need to inculcate this mindset shift among investors, where they need to experiment with a little bit more with patient capital and a higher risk appetite. Mr. Said, my next question is for you. According to you, what is the role that subsidies, interest subventions, and differential terms can play in order to improve the uptake of wash loans?
Yeah, I think thanks, Rasika. I think we are as a country uh, close to declaring ourselves open defecation free. It has been at several districts have been discussed, and the access issue has been to a great extent been addressed and created. I think what I would want to mention here is what my friend said, Debajyoti here, and Manoj also said. We have to look at as a sustainable effort, and sustainability has to be focused. And sustainability would not only happen by providing more loans or providing more sanitation facility. It will happen from the 360-degree looking at the infrastructure. So the ecosystem, of course, Debjyoti talked about the kind of government's role, but I'm also talking about from a point of view of a mason who's helping us put these toilets together. Does he have the credit facility? He is employing one or two people with him. To put this structure in place and doing it, does he have that finance ability, whether he can hold credit for a month or 2 months and he continues to do his work? Similarly, small vendors who are providing sanitation facility like pipes and other stuff at the rural area, do they have that ability to hold that stock and all of those? Because ultimately we are building this infrastructure, and I think the great effort has gone down in Indian ecosystem. We have put this in place at the rural household, but will this continue to be utilized? That all depends upon the sustainability of this infrastructure that we have created, and for that we have to invest in the ecosystem. That's more important, and that's, I think, what Manoj and his team is trying to address today. Apart from that, we have to be cognizant of the climate change that is happening. The floods and the cyclones are becoming more frequent, and they are also causing a lot of damages to the infrastructure, as well as there is change in the kind of whole ecosystem there. So that has to be taken care of, and we have done that, especially in Kerala. We have understood that there is kind of a propensity of floods and cyclones and other stuff. So, educate our client base. That is also very important to do, to in terms of building infrastructure which are sustainable and safe, even in situation where there are floods and climates, whether they have a rescue area where there are sufficient sanitation facilities and all of those. So that has to be focused. But I think more from a lender point of view, as a person who is working towards kind of improving the lives of our customer, we need to focus on sustainability. And as Manoj and also I think Debjyoti said, in terms of availability of finance, there is enough finance that is available. But I think those definition of wash and sanitation loan needs to be revisited, because this loan needs to go into now what Bonani ma'am is trying to do is MSME finance. So there it has to go, and also it has to go for repair of those facilities that we have created. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Said. I think we have time for one more question. And Mr. Patnaik, my question is for you. Do you think that there is a need for a cultural change to encourage MFI borrowers to adopt more climate change products? And how do you think this can be integrated, especially given that there are a lot of different stakeholders to ensure that long-term sustainability?
Uh, let me take, this is an interesting question. So let me take you back to when we started doing Verse Loan. There was a lot of integration from development institutions, financial institutions, and government institutions to build that whole communication, narrative, training on the ground to ensure that people get learned. You tell them what the benefits are, how not having safe water or not having access to water or sanitation facility is impacting their livelihood, by calculating, telling them what kind of money they're spending in their health. To now again coming back, and again we have to come together as a fraternity to do that, to communicate to the people, build that whole communication material to tell them that if there is a cyclone, there's a flood happening continuously, how many days of yours you do not getting access to those facilities, and what is the impact of that in your livelihood or health, and what is the expenditure around that. I think there is a much bigger need right now to communicate people on the impact of this climate change on their life, because it is slow and people are not in a position to understand what kind of losses they are getting into. So it's, and it need all the people from all the fraternity to come together and build that whole narrative around, and communicate them, train them, inform them, to build the whole communication material. You need people to design them the way we worked around. I think that is the first stage. The second stage would be also to bring in these micro entrepreneurs to um, facilitate these innovative products that are available, because these products are also not available at different places. So that also need to be, it need to reach the last mile for them to get use of those climate resilient product lines, to reduce, at least if not completely eradicate, but at least reduce the impact of climate change in their life. And we have not even started there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Patnaik, and thank you to all the panelists for such an engaging discussion. Maybe if we have time for a couple of audience questions, if one or two questions, if anybody wants to ask our panelists.
Sir, I want to share something we have done. I am Sivarani from Salem, Tamil Nadu. Because WASH program is one of the favorite subject in our context. We are working with 1 lakh poor families. I have worked with water.org also. Then you have discussed about the finance. We are having nearly 10,000 self-help groups, and we have created a lot of communication material. We are telling that WASH chart, nearly 50 charts we are having, and we have motivated the people through 2 ways. One is through adolescent girls group, so importance of toilet and importance of water, and then through our self-help group members. Then finance aspect, all the self-help group we got a cash credit loan from the banks, but interest rate is somewhat higher. 12 to 13% they are giving to the groups, and in turn they are giving 18% to the members. So at the time, last 10 years, we built with nearly 12,000 toilet with the help of government and with the help of our self-help group federations. 12,000 they have given the total sanitation program, they have given the subsidy. But each and every individual, their thought is different. Some members, they are doing for the government program structure. Some members, they are telling, no, this will be increased. 25,000 to 50,000, they are investing on their toilet. They are not at all coincide with what federation or group will tell. Always they will think their own itself. So federation will go their own way. So like that we have built. And wash chart also we have prepared. And importance of water hand washing day, like that we have given lot of training. Once the COVID came last 4 years back, all the members, they have realized. Before that, what they are telling, this is not one way, this is burden for us for repaying the loan and all. Because 12,000 rupees not is not what we can say, for building the that individual toilet, not enough money. It will increase the money. So once the COVID, they have realized the importance of the awareness and all. So it will go in a long way. But in the foreign areas, they are having all the public places super toilets. Wherever you go in US or wherever you go, all are having the pakka toilet. But in India, so much of population is there, there is no toilet in and around. So but we are telling the people, you can clean toilet, using of the clean toilet, you have to keep the environment so clean. Then how they will keep the clean? Because I have to use means immediately available toilet means very easy for keeping the environment clean. So all the policy advocacy advisors and the government may think, sir. This is the experience regarding WASH program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. What you're doing is very important because inculcating behavior change and generating demand is the foundation for sustaining WASH loans. Thank you so much.
Okay, I thought you were going to answer or give some comments on that. My name is Anand, and I'm working with UNICEF as WASH officer in Maharashtra. To the panel, I think I have it's basically need the sort of deliberation in terms of, because what we're talking about is financing, or rather microfinancing at individual level. But climate doesn't look at individuals; it looks at a community or at a village level. So, any thoughts on that? Like the community resilience rather than an individual resilience from the technology perspective. Second is that the entire investment which we are making into that probably needs a little bit of change of narrative in terms of not only the products but the operation and maintenance part of that. I would be happy if microfinance institution comes to a gram panchayat and tells, okay, here is our financing for your operation and maintenance of any water supply scheme or a community sanitary complex. And we have these SHG operated or women led sanitation complexes, many places. So how do we kind of help them to sustain in terms of those things? Thank you.
Okay. I think I'll answer part of the question, part will go to the MFI. So, first of all, where it comes to the community, most of the work has to be on PPP mode. So, because obviously these are, government is absolutely focused, lot of work is happening, and especially on WASH, and now climate ready WASH is becoming the narrative slowly, and lot of innovations are happening, which the government is lapping up actually. There is a lot of support that MSMEs are getting in this, and this financing has to be to MSMEs because government funds come later. Government will give the contract, but the work is done by the MSME, who is either a contractor or a subcontractor. They have to win the bid on GEM and they do the work, or whichever methodology for the procurement. So either the state government or the central government, whoever gives the orders, it is ultimately the MSME, ultimately the contractor or the subcontractor who is doing this work, and they need funding. And that's where we are trying to channelize, not through MFIs, because these are slightly bigger loans to individuals. So this has to go through our NBFC partners, which we are trying to do. And where it comes to masons and plumbers, of course microfinance loan is available to self-employed people. But where it comes to changing the narrative, in fact this is where we feel that just like the Gati Shakti, there is a master plan, and this is what DJ and even Sadaf was saying, that there has to be a collaborative action, there has to be a understanding of the fact that just like COVID, it was about shared vulnerabilities. Because I cannot shut myself up in my room and be safe from COVID. Same way, if the atmosphere is unclean, the water is unclean, if there is waste and landfills everywhere, if it is dirty in one place, let's say in Jharkhand, then indoor being clean doesn't always keep indoor safe, because it is all spreading. It's all about shared vulnerabilities. So whether it's geographies, age, disability, gender, backward classes, everyone has to be involved. And this is where we felt Niti Aayog can come in. In fact, we had a talk with Mr. Joshi yesterday, and we said that there is a need for a master plan because there are different ministries. Right. So where is Jal Shakti, there is Mohua, there is rural development. So there are different ministries. So, and there are states and center as well. So the best agency is Niti Aayog, and happily they are already seized of the matter, and they said we are already thinking along these lines to have a water and sanitation master plan. If that happens, this picture will be very clear, and it will be more easy for all other actors to play their individual roles within this system.
No, it was a very pertinent question. your observation and your comment that climate affects the community, entire thing is true. But community is, again, what earlier the panelists talked about. We have different layers of where the capital needs to be funded, come in. Capital needs to come in at the household level and continue to come in at the household level, because the individual needs to understand from a lens of climate also the impact that they are doing in the process. The lack of toilet, what if the toilet is not reconstructed, there is not a better toilet made, you're going back in the process, maybe in a more difficult way. The MSME also needs financing. We want MSMEs to support those individual toilets, then that also will need working capital funds. The nano enterprises that we are talking about, whether it is for providing uh, for toilets cleaning agents, which is done at the village level, or it is done for community water plants, they all are projects which are water climate related and O&M related, maintenance related, but need small enterprise support, which needs financing, where the MFIs can play a significant role if the right policies further come into place. And then let's take a step further above where capital needs to come, which Bonani ma'am was talking about, in the infrastructure projects, the wastewater treatment plants, the sewage treatment plants, the non-revenue water projects that are there. NRW is a major issue. I'll share a very quick example. Cities like done in Ahmedabad study said 45% of the water actually does not reach the household, that is pumped. Now, Ahmedabad gets, and Gujarat largely now gets its water from Narmada River. That water comes from the river. Imagine it gets pumped to the city, 45% doesn't come. Imagine the carbon footprint that you're creating, because most of the electricity is fossil fueled. So we are making a very big issue. And the problem is, the bond cannot come with for water and sanitation, because water meters are not there at the end of the day at the household level. So if we have to solve the problem, we'll have to look at it. You want to create a PPP? Great. And there is I'm working on a PPP which is in Dhanbad. There's a PPP apart from the larger cities, smaller towns are now looking at wastewater treatment plant PPPs, which need the capital to be mobilized. But you also have to, at the same token, see how the individual is changing their behavior, having roof rainwater harvesting projects, setting up soak pits, so that their water they're managing it at their level also. So I think it's a complex problem, but there is money needed at every layer of the issue. Back to you. And maybe Sadaf and...
So to answer to the second question, yes, it is possible to fund some those kind of institution. We just need to think through a model like these FPUs, the way FPUs are organized and now are getting funding. Similar way, if we can organize them to a more formal structure, funding can be available to them, even from institutions like us.
I do agree that O&M projects should be picked up. MFIs should work on the maintenance of the toilets. How do you better take care of it? Because the structure is there, and maintaining the structure is best way of saving the structure, which goes back to the whole thing. Then you are believing in it, you imbibe it, you maintain it, and when it gets spoiled, you can take a micro loan for it, and then continue to use it.
I thank our moderator and the panelist for this insightful discussion, and we hope to have a more inclusive and more climate conscious world. So moving forward, we would like to present a token of gratitude to all the panelists, and also would like all the panelists to stay back for the good photograph.